Hi, thank you guys for attending the Institute for Leadership and Action's Critical Thinking and Problem Solving workshop. So these are the presenters. Alex will probably be hopping on soon, and Amanda might be, but I'll just introduce them. Alex is a social work major. He's a senior. Amanda is a political science and an urban and agricultural sustainability double major. And my name is Natalie DeSandro, and I am also a social work major. So here are our objectives for today. Going to provide.
I don't see the slides changing. I can't see the slides like changing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, it's not moving for some reason.
Let's see. Let's stop sharing and start sharing again. Yeah. Thanks for telling me that.
Yeah. Michael, you were too scared.
Weird. Okay. Well, here's our pictures that you missed. And here's our objectives. So we're going to provide you with an overview of various critical thinking and problem solving strategies. We're going to go through the ideal method, the roots and shoots 4-step formula, and the UPSC method. Then we're going to discuss how critical thinking and problem solving can aid in everyday life. Then we're going to practice critical thinking and problem solving in an activity, which is super fun. I think you guys are going to like it. And we're going to connect critical thinking and problem solving to the practice of leadership. So first we have to define critical thinking before we start getting into all these different methodologies of it. So critical thinking is the analytical thinking which underlies all rational discourse and inquiry. It is characterized by a rigorous and meticulous approach. So critical thinking is unique as an academic discipline because it focuses on the processes of being rational. So the processes that are mainly involved in critical thinking are analyzing arguments, judging the relevance and significance of information, evaluating claims, inferences, arguments, and explanations, constructing clear and coherent arguments, and forming well-reasoned decisions. So all of these different processes kind of come together to help you make critical thought, right? Because it's a meticulous process. It's like kind of a step-by-step thing, which we're going to get into shortly. So critical thinking is closely linked to rationality, and that's what makes it so unique as an academic discipline. So here's the ideal method. So an interesting little bit about the ideal method is that it kind of says that you have like non-routine problems versus routine problems. So you can use the ideal method for a non-routine problem or a routine problem. So to define a non-routine problem is basically, as it sounds, it's like a problem that that doesn't occur in like your day-to-day life. It would be like something different that you need to kind of take some steps to figure out how you're going to solve that problem. Another important thing is to avoid mental escapes, which would be like procrastinating or daydreaming, and basically just putting yourself, like putting some distance between you and the problem that you're trying to solve. So I can say, like, for myself, I literally did this earlier today. I was using a mental escape when I have a lot of laundry that I should be folding. And I was like, I'm just gonna rest my eyes for a little bit. And then I ended up resting my eyes until it was time for me to start working on this presentation. So that was me mentally like putting some distance between me and I mean, it's a little problem, but it's a problem. I have to fold my laundry. So that's an example of what not to do, right? So you're going to want to first identify problems and opportunities, and you're going to define the specific goals that you want to achieve along the way. So it's like, in order to achieve my goal, like this is what I have to do. How am I going to get there? You want to explore the possible strategies. So there's always more than one way to solve a problem, right? So you want to really map out and think about these different strategies that you could use to solve your specific problem. Action means anticipate outcomes and what may happen along the way. So you're thinking ahead, right? You're anticipating what's going to happen next and looking back. So you want to look back and learn and reflect on all the steps that came before and think about, is this a way, if this problem comes up again, am I going to be able to solve it in the same way? Like, was this a good way for me to go about solving this problem? And I just want to note that critical thinking and problem solving, like when you're solving a problem, you are inherently thinking critically along the way about solving a problem. So they are very interconnected and closely linked. So next we are going to move on to Roots and Shoots 4-step formula. So Roots and Shoots, just to give a little background, is a national organization that uses this 4-step formula to empower youth to proudly stand for what they believe in. So it's a very interesting organization. This formula that we're going to talk about in a second helps guide youth through the process of exploring their passions in order to plan and implement a project. So this is another example of a problem-solving 4-step formula, but this is it's more broad. So you're like they actually want you to apply this formula to solving a specific problem in your community. It's very interesting. So the first step is to get engaged. You want to get excited and engaged about understanding issues in your community, and that's the first step. So first, before you can even start going about how you're going to solve the problem, you want to know what the problem is that you're going to address. So you want to be inspired. That's the first step to realizing your potential to make change, is to be inspired by something in your community that you would want to problem solve. So Roots and Shoots encourages change from a community level all the way up to global projects. So you can check out their website. We link it at the end, but they have examples of different projects that youth have come up with and that they're on the website. So the next step is to observe. So community mapping is what they recommend in terms of how to like observe your community and figure out what the problem is that you want to address. Community mapping highlights people, physical structures, organizations, and institutions, and can be used to create a meaningful service project. So community mapping is used by the Jane Goodall Institute's scientists, which is also interesting. Lends some credibility to community mapping. Next is take action. So once you and your team have mapped the community, you recognize a set of local needs, now you can plan for a project and actually execute the project that you think would best suit the community that you're a part of. So this step allows you to put into place the skills learned in the previous 2 steps. And the Roots and Shoots website not only provides examples of different projects, but they have planning resources as well. So if you were to want to really get serious about this, they have toolkits for each step along the way. And then last is to celebrate the work that you've just done. So it's really important to look back on the hard work that you've done and use the work that you've done to inspire others to do the same thing. Because, if someone else does a community map, they may come up with a different problem in the community that they want to address. And then it could just be a continuous positive cycle, which would be good. The final method we're going to discuss is the UPSC method. So the first step in this method is to understand. So you want to determine what is given in a problem and what you're being asked to find relevant concepts that apply, and define any technical vocabulary that you're unsure of. Next is plan. So you're deciding on a strategy based on the information that you've just learned in the understand part, and you're going to use that strategy to solve your problem. You want to write it down so that you can come back to it if you get lost in the process, right? But also I just want to note that it's okay to be flexible. Like even if you have a plan and you wrote it down, but you can see that it's not feasible, it's not going to work with solving that particular problem, it's okay to go back to step 1. So it doesn't have to be a linear process. You can go back if you see that it's not working. Next would be solve, which is to execute the strategy that you've chosen and attend to precision. You want to be careful to check your work as you go along, and don't be afraid to go back to the plan step to find another strategy if that one, like I mentioned, if that one doesn't seem to be working. Lastly is check. So is your answer reasonable in the context of the situation? Is it the only possible answer? And how can you ensure that it's accurate? Something really interesting is that this method was actually created to solve math problems, like specifically to solve math, which I just found interesting because this can be applied to things that aren't math, right? But then when you know that, it's like, oh, I can see that's what George Poya was talking about when he made it, but it can also be applied to just about any problem that you encounter. These steps will still work. So maybe learning algebra was useful for us. Maybe. So here's some ways that we use critical thinking and problem solving in our everyday lives. So inductive versus deductive reasoning is critical thinking. So inductive reasoning is where you make your observations and then those lead you to a conclusion. It's like you're looking around and observing, and that's what brings you to your solution. And deductive, so it's kind of like you're starting from the bottom and going up. And then deductive is the opposite. You're starting from the top and going down. So it's like you're reading theories, you're reading what other people have done in the past, and that's what's kind of bringing you to your conclusion. Navigating the internet is something that I know that we all do, and that is also, you need to use your critical thinking when you're navigating the internet, because there's a lot of things that you come across that aren't exactly true, and that they can be opinions, but they present themselves as the truth. So it's up to you as a critical thinker to be able to differentiate between the two. And also conducting research. We all have research papers and projects, and so when you're doing research, you want to know, okay, is this an accurate source? Is this something I can use? Is this a scholarly article? Is this something I can use in my paper? And that's critical thinking as well. And then in the classroom, we're doing critical thinking and problem solving, hopefully, in every class. So you're forming arguments and analyzing information when you're writing essays or taking exams and having discussions. And learning agility also plays a part in this too, because when a professor poses a question, you want to be able to think quickly and be like, oh, okay, like this is the answer. And you're thinking on your feet, and you're using your critical thinking and problem solving skills then too, just like in a faster way. But so here is the connection to leadership. Noah, I hope you enjoy the picture of the cat. The critical thinking is perhaps the most important skill for a leader to possess, because in times of crisis, individuals are going to look to the leader for guidance and answers. So as a leader, you want to be able to deliver a calm and well thought out plan for whatever the situation might be. So as the leader, people are going to look to you, and it's important that you are using these skills that we just mentioned and the different problem solving techniques that we just mentioned to be able to provide that positive leadership. So problem-led leadership is emerging as an alternative to typical leadership styles. So problem-led leadership is this new idea coming out of MIT that kind of reframes the way that we think of leaders. So basically, people that graduate from MIT all have certain things in common, especially the ones that do end up becoming leaders, and that's that they don't really like see themselves as leaders. They see themselves as part of the team, basically, and they are engaging other members of the team to like get behind certain problems or get behind certain projects, and they just kind of like fall into the role of a leadership position. So it's less about like, trying super hard to be the CEO or whatever it may be, and more about using your genuine like personality and using the problems that you're coming across to fuel you and to inspire the others that are on your team. So problem-led leadership, it's a new thing. MIT is doing it. So here's our fun little way that we're gonna use these critical thinking skills to solve some interesting brain teasers. So you guys can unmute, and if you want to like think through these questions out loud. I have the answer, so I can't say anything. But The first, I've tried to do it like easy, medium, and then kind of hard. So that's how they are for me in any way. So our first one is, in what year did Christmas and New Year's Day fall in the same year? You can, yeah.
I mean, every year.
Yeah. That's true. You got that one. That was the easy one, though. Let's just.
Okay. I won't let my head get too big.
Yeah, because so Christmas Day is at the end of the year, and New Year's Day is the very first day of the year. So they're always on the first day of the year. Look at you being such a critical thinker. Next, Clara Clatter was born on December 27th, yet her birthday is always in the summer. How is this possible?
I don't know. My first guess is that she doesn't live in a state or country that has winter, like that experiences winter.
Yes, she lives in the southern hemisphere, so they never have winter. I didn't know that one. That one actually, I was like, I had to look at the answer.
So quick clarification. South of the equator, winter would be experienced during our period of summer and vice versa.
Oh, they still have winter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just like always.
I mean, it's probably a little warmer, but depending on where you are.
Snow there? Like, could Clara Clatter ever have snow on her birthday? Probably not. Okay. All right. Here's the big one then. You guys are so smart, but this will be the test. What is the one thing that all wise men, regardless of their religion or politics, agree is between heaven and earth? And I'll give you a hint if you need it.
Is it like the sky, or does that count as heaven?
So my hint will be to make sure that you're like really looking at the wording of the question. I could probably give you another hint too, if that's not helpful. Read it.
Sorry, that one started barking.
No hints.
Boo, Michael.
That wasn't even that helpful of a hint.
It's true.
Let me think of another one.
You just said no hints.
I know, but
so rebellious.
I want them to get it. I mean, like, really look at the question. Like, it's almost like the answer is almost like silly.
Hidden in it.
Yes. Do you want me to tell you guys?
Oh, is it and?
Yes.
Oh. That's funny.
Yeah. It's the word and. Yeah. Okay, those were our little brain teasers. Yeah, good job. Good job, Alexa. You guys did good. So now we're gonna have a little bit of a discussion. Back up. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we talked about thus far?
I think I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so I have a question for you guys. How has COVID-19 affected the way that we live, learn, and work to you? And it could be different for each of you, you know?
Okay, so I would say extremely specific to COVID-19. I think it's so unpredictable and there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think it's almost encouraged people to like really research before they assume anything. And I think it's helped bring to light community in a sense as well. So those are the first two things that kind of come to mind.
Yeah, and going
Those
off
were
of,
like positive, like two positive things that have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Going off of what Alexa said, I think it really shows how messy the scientific process is because it's happening in real time. And I also think for people who are working or in school, it kind of makes work rather than like being at a certain place for a certain amount of time. It's more like, I guess, task oriented. So like you have to do a certain amount of things, but it doesn't matter how long it takes you because you're at home anyway.
Right. Yeah. So do you, this is kind of like a follow-up question, but do you guys feel that that is a more productive way of working or less so? The like
I
task
think
oriented rather than time oriented.
it's better.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
What
I was just wondering. I was
are
just
your thoughts?
curious.
Yeah, like
I personally probably would prefer the other, like I'd rather have it be like, okay, you have this amount of time to like do your work, but on top of it, I'd rather go somewhere to like do my work. Like I find it difficult
that's true.
to be home and just sitting here and I'm like, oh, I could just, like, I don't know. I find it, for me, it's hurt the way that I learn and that I work, because I would much rather be in the classroom. I'd much rather be like in the office or giving this workshop like in person.
Right.
So I appreciate that you guys like thought of these like positive changes. That's good. But yeah, that's how I feel. I would rather, I guess it's less about being task oriented and more about just like having somewhere to go. I like that. That keeps me going, literally. Our follow-up question to that question is, given some of the things, the tools and resources that we've talked about today, how do you think we could use like problem solving or critical thinking to thrive in this new environment that we have now that we just talked about? Go, Noah.
Okay. I guess we could write down schedules and plans and such things as was in, I think the USPC one, right?
Yeah, like write everything down so you can go back to it and look. Yeah.
Yeah. Planning is definitely essential. You know, looking ahead at what kind of new challenges we'll face now that we're virtual and whatnot. And communication is really important. So I would also say that in like when you're seeking out like what problem you want to tackle, you also really want to work on educating your team and the masses in general. Just to make sure that everyone can like try to be on the same page.
Ooh. There's a conflict going on, right? Do you hear that?
Yeah, I
I
hear
hear
it.
something, yeah.
Oh my
Oh, no.
goodness. I'm sorry, Alexa. I was listening to you.
That's okay.
I've also, there's like, my road is like a river right now, so I'm just like
Oh, yeah.
like going by, and it's like creating waves as we speak.
Oh my God.
I know, it's kind of entertaining. I guess I'm not going out tonight.
No.
But I think that's true. Both of the things that you said, and so like I just really appreciate that you guys put a pot.
Cat.
Aww.
Aw.
It's a big cat.
Chunky.
A little
Just
bit.
That you guys both put like positive spins on like the ways that it's changed, and also like how you can thrive and kind of like learn new and different skills. I think that's a really good way of looking at it and thinking like, okay, like I can develop different skills now and different things that I can do that I maybe wouldn't have ever learned if not for this. So that's very appreciated.
Mhm.
I believe, yeah. Any questions, any comments, concerns?
What was the cat's name?
Eugene Hamilton d'Italia.
Oh my goodness.
So
Do
elegant.
you call him by that whole name?
I really, while we're recording, I can't tell you what I usually call him. He's
Nice.
he's not the nicest guy a lot of the time.
Aw, I wish I could show you my street right now. I don't know if I can. Hi, Rob. Hold on, maybe you'll see this, Rob, real quick. Let me just try this. Oh, it's really like crazy. Can you see?
It's hard to
For
tell
the
because
most
it's like
part.
street.
It's
is
like
always-
it's like all water. Like there's no road.
That's nuts.
I know.
Oh my god.
I know. This happens every time. You know what? Speaking of community mapping, this is a problem I would like to address with the Gloucester City people.
Public Works.
Time it rains to my but in other news, here is our just kidding, we have one more thing to talk about.
Surprise.
That critical thinking and problem solving in action. So these are just some things that you can do on a day-to-day basis to kind of strengthen your critical thinking and problem solving skills. So you want to practice asking good questions, and that's related to kind of like navigating the internet, to being in the classroom, and just in your conversations with whomever you speak to on a daily basis. Like if somebody's saying something that you're kind of like questioning, it's a good practice to ask a good question back to them so that you can like kind of understand more of what they're saying, and also asking good questions in terms of like headlines, and it's like, okay, how reliable is this information that I'm receiving? Just kind of question things, right? Don't just take everything at face value. Critique your own arguments. So I know for me, I always feel that I am right, and I'm sure I'm sure there's been times when I haven't been in the past. So it's hard to believe, but I'm sure it's happened. And in those times, I think it's good to kind of think about like, okay, what was my train of thought here? Like, how did I lay out my argument? How could I have done this? How could I have done this better? So you don't have to be harsh on yourself, but it's always good to improve however you can. And lastly, explore multiple perspectives and solutions. So luckily, we are in the internet age, and we have access to lots of different perspectives. So that should never be too difficult to find a perspective that may be completely opposite of how you feel, and just kind of like reading through, seeing their logic. I've recently gotten into doing that a lot, just to kind of, in a way, it can like strengthen your own thinking, because you see like, okay, this is how they're breaking down the problem. This is how I can do it. And yeah, so I think that's it. Let's see. Yes, here are the resources. The Roots and Shoots, if you're interested in Roots and Shoots, it's just rootsandshoots.org. And yeah, okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you guys for coming along with me.